Well, hello. I want to preface my video saying is that the cop did wrong. I believe the officer who laid his knee on his neck should get 25 to life. Those who are calling first degree murder, there is no evidence that he pre-planned this. So it's second degree murder, most likely. And the other cops should be charged for accessory to that murder of Mr. Floyd. That being said, is that as stated, and what I'm titling this video is that some of these protests are turning into riots. What I'm even more perplexed about is why people aren't taking Miss Taylor's case even more seriously. Is that, yeah, Mr. Floyd, at most, he had a forged $20 bill on him. But Miss Taylor, she was an EMT worker trying to be a nurse. She was even more innocent than Mr. Floyd, and she was shot in her sleep. That is even more wrong when happened to Mr. Floyd, yet Mr. Floyd is more visual since there's photographic evidence of the cops just murdering him there in the street. But the problem is that people are hurting their communities, and that is what people are more protest saying what's wrong. Is that I personally would probably, if all these riots weren't going on, that I would personally join the people out in the streets protesting the egregious actions that happened against Mr. Floyd. But he himself would not want this. He made videos saying we should stop this violence. He went down that road. We should stop this. So you're not honoring his memory by all this violence. There is also good evidence that it's mainly provocateurs who are starting up the riots, mainly white far-left Antifa. They're trying to make this about race to try to divide us. But if you really look at it, who's being hurt? The black community, black business owners, a new sports bar, food trucks, just name a few. And that famous looting of the Target in Minneapolis, there's a video of an older black lady yelling at these young punk kids that she needed her medicine, but now she can't get it. So these provocateurs are trying to racially divide us and hurt the community to try to go after the white guy. And yes, there are a few racist white people, but trust me, it's not as bad as it was. And we are seeing now is that people are trying to come together. The cops hugging protesters, protesters protecting a cop from more unruly protesters when that cop got separated from his fellow officers. We are seeing hope. We need to come together to show the small batch, as they say, one rotten apple spoils a whole bunch. We need to come together to stop these few provocateurs from hurting our community. But the problem is that a fair amount of left publications is still calling all of this protests, and that's just hurting the majority that are peacefully protesting. And when you call them all protests, then you got the few ignorant right-wingers saying, oh, those aren't protests, those are riots, they must all be rioting. And that's how you harm your cause, is that when you call them all protests, or just violent protests, then you're hurting the majority that actually are protesting an injustice. You need to call the few, small chunk, maybe like 10 to 20% of them, they are rioters, and the rest are peaceful protesters. You can scream, call cops racist, Nazi, pigs, all you want, but once that brick is thrown, or that lit firework is basically shot towards the officers, it's no longer peacefully to assemble under the Constitution. And it just irks me how the left is trying to downplay it for their agenda, and they are actually hurting the true majority of peaceful protests by calling the more violent, well, riots, kind of intuitive of the definition of these small group that's hurting our community. And some on the left will argue they don't listen to nonviolence. That is just not true. Is that if you go back to the second civil rights movement of the 1960s and kind of 1970s, is that people were horrified at what they were seeing, just like how Vietnam showed journalists showing basically soon after incidences what was going on in Vietnam, and people were horrified what was going on there. And just how they saw just a black man just sitting on the street, minding his own business, just sitting there, and this fire hose just goes ripping into him, making him tumble and force him against the wall. People, even the slightly racist people of the northern states, were saying, "Oh God, I didn't know it was that bad down there." It's the exact same thing. If people had just stood there holding a sign on the side of a street, now blocking streets, and then suddenly a rubber bullet goes flying into them, then it makes the cops look bad. If the That's my own idea is that if we just stand there like silence, just how Mr. Floyd said, "I can't breathe," just silent, and then the cops do action against the people, it makes the cops look bad, just like it did in footage in the 1960s and how the majority of the people saw the cops overreacting to silent protests. And as I kind of stated before, I have no idea why these rioters are burning down small businesses, even large companies, where their fellow low income people are trying to make a living. You're just hurting your community. My own question is, why aren't they burning down the courthouses, which are actually the places where the black people are being sentenced at a harsher level than white people or Asians? So why not burn down more cop precincts, government buildings that are actually doing the suppressing and not your community? And that just shows it's people outside the community that are trying to hurt the people within the community that was harmed. We need to come together with this. We cannot hurt our fellow countrymen and actually bring the fight to where it belongs. Hope you liked this video. Hope to see you in the next video.